Hi, sixth graders. Today we're going to talk about ratios and proportions. So today is going to be all about ratios. So in this standard, it's RP1 for sixth grade. And our I can segment today is I can use what I know about ratios to describe the relationship between two quantities. In order for us to get started this morning, we need to first know what is a ratio. So the definition of a ratio is a comparison of two quantities. So we are comparing different quantities. Quantities is just the number of a specific category. So in this video, you're going to learn what is a ratio, how do I write a ratio, and what are some examples of ratios. So again, we are comparing two quantities. So let's start with our examples. We have triangles and circles. Those are our two different quantities. And it says, what is the ratio of circles to triangles? Now, one of the most important things about writing a ratio correctly is understanding the order that the question is asking for the quantities to be compared. So, in this one, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I'm looking for the ratio of circles to triangles. Now, one of the things that you can teach yourself to do to help correct this and make sure that you're doing it correctly is to go ahead and write down that order. Circles to triangles. Then, the next step is just to count the number that goes in each quantity. So, for circles, I have 1, 2, 3 circles. And for triangles, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, there are 3 different ways to write a ratio. You can either write it in word form, like 3, 2, 5, because for every 3 circles, there are 5 triangles. Or you can write it as a fraction using that division bar, 3 out of 5. Or you can write it using a colon. These are our 3 ways to write a ratio. They all mean the same thing. So when I am comparing my circles to triangles, I can write this in all 3 ways because they all mean the same thing. Now, in our second example, it says in the classroom there are 10 boys and 12 girls. What is the ratio of girls to boys? Now, in this one, our order is already written out for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my number on top. For girls, there are 12. For boys, there are 10. So over here where I'm writing it down, I would say girls to boys. I'm comparing the number of girls to the number of boys. And I'm going to replace girls with the number 12 because that's the quantity. And boys with 10. Then I can write it as a fraction or with a colon. Now, the last thing you need to know is if this is a fraction, we know that we can always simplify a fraction if the numerator and denominator can both be divided by the same factor. So when we look at 3/5, this cannot be simplified because 3 is a prime number, which means it's only divisible by 1 and 3. And 5 is the same way. Because they're both prime, we cannot simplify. However, when we look at 12/10, the first thing you should notice is that 12 is greater than 10, so this will be an improper fraction. But if we simplify, both of these end in an even number, so I know that I can divide at least by 2. So if I divide 12 by 2, I get 6. And if I divide 10 by 2, I get 5. So 12 to 10 and 6 to 5 are equivalent. Just like equivalent fractions, can be equal if they can be simplified by the same factor or multiplied by the same factor to get the new fraction. So just as a recap, the most important thing you can know about ratios is that the order matters. So what is a ratio? A ratio is a comparison of two quantities, any two quantities. How do we write a ratio? We write it using the word to, we write it with the fraction bar, or we write it with a colon. Notice the order of the numbers stays the same in all three methods. Then the last one, an example of a ratio, the steps to do that, we're going to write the order that the question gives us, we're going to count the quantity, and then we're going to simplify if possible. Join us for our next video when we apply ratio knowledge a little bit deeper.